Hey everybody, I finished grading all of the work from week one, and I wanted to offer just a quick video to kind of give some general feedback. For each of your assignments, I provided specific feedback, but I found, especially after week one, this is pretty helpful as maybe you weren't deducted for something in week one, but then you don't know about that. So in week two, maybe you do make that mistake. So it's good to just kind of put this out there and kind of share some general feedback that should be overall helpful to you. So first off, with discussions, again, just a reminder, you need to have that initial post up by Thursday. What I saw across several of the discussions this week was that initial post was kind of brief. What we're looking for is roughly 400 to 600 words. Okay, so again, keep in mind, looking for graduate level critical thought and analysis. So, avoid the summary stuff, get into that critical level thought. And like I said, you need about 400 to 600 words to really do that and do that right. And, think about the sources that support it as well. In the field of health IT, I'm going to argue that a source older than 10 years is considerably dated. There certainly are cases where some of the older stuff has stood the test of time. Like for example, last week you were citing meaningful use. Yes, some of the stuff from 2010, 11, and 12 is still very applicable today. But if you're trying to convince me of something new or change my viewpoint or challenge a position, in the field of health IT, I've been doing this for over 20 years now. And if I look back at research from 10, 15, 20 years ago, it's incredibly out of date and in most cases just completely inaccurate. So always be mindful of that. Next, peer replies. Keep in mind 3 is the minimum. Okay, so if you give me an initial post with 400 to 600 words with ample source support, and you give me 3 peer replies, you're meeting the minimum expectation. Okay, so as I posted in the announcements last week, I won't give you maximum credit for meeting the minimum threshold. Okay, I also noticed in a lot of the peer replies this week, what I was seeing was just really some of that kind of summary, I agree type stuff. Go beyond that, challenge viewpoints. I know we don't all agree, and I'm looking for some respective discourse there, and that includes me as well. If I challenge your viewpoint, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just looking for more defense of that. So. I have my position, you have yours, so how you support it is what really makes the difference. Okay. So, thinking about the PowerPoints that you submitted in week one, a few things to think about that I noticed some kind of trends on. In PowerPoint, you always want to be consistent. Okay, so I noticed some slides where people would go from one font type to another. The font size was inconsistent, where maybe on one slide I'm looking at 18-point font, I flip to the next slide and it slaps me in the face with a 40-point font. So be consistent. The other thing with PowerPoint is you want to avoid overly busy slides. If you have a lot of text on the slides, we've all been sitting in those presentations before where someone puts a slide up and they immediately caveat with, I realize this is a lot, but, and then they commence to just read the entire slide to you. We all check out, you lose your audience very quickly. One rule of thumb that I hear people use all the time is what they call 6 by 6. And that means no more than 6 bullet points with no more than 6 words on each bullet point. That's a soft, guideline, okay? But it's something to think about. If you've got just copious amounts of text, then is what you need to do is that needs to go down into those speaker notes, okay? Speaker notes are incredibly important. Anytime I present live, I always put stuff in the speaker notes. I put the slides in presentation mode so I can see my speaker notes. Even if it's a presentation I've given 50 times, you just never know when you might forget something or you need that there. So the speaker notes is where you really expand on that, okay? So again, that's kind of the big thing. The other thing I noticed was, just like when you're writing a paper, when you get to the end, some of you just kind of had your last thought and then hit me with the references. You need to have some type of conclusion, okay? And this applies to the APA papers that you'll write in this class as well. As when you think about a conclusion, you want to do one of a couple things. You want to summarize key points. You want kind of that call to action, or you maybe want those next steps. Okay, so think about that when you bring it to a close. Your conclusion is the last point that you have to wow the writer, and or the reader, excuse me. So if you keep their attention that long, and they get to the conclusion, and you don't nail it on the conclusion, you've kind of lost your last chance. So keep that in mind. The other point that I'll make across the entire semester is the importance of proofreading. When I do a presentation or I write a paper, I try and look for two different proofreaders. Okay, the first proofreader I want someone that is just very knowledgeable on the mechanics of proper grammar, the given style, APA, for example. They don't need to be a content expert. Okay, I've got that person kind of in my network that she is an impeccable writer, but she's really, really good at the mechanics of APA. Unfortunately, I have nothing to offer her in return, so about once every 6 weeks, I'm asking her to read a paper or review a presentation for me. And in exchange for that, it usually involves me paying for a happy hour. If you've got a friend that you can exchange both ways, that's most helpful. So that's your first proofreader. You ideally want to target as someone with that mechanical knowledge of the writing. The other one is you want a content expert. Okay, so find somebody in your network that's up to speed on the content that can really help review that and go, are you getting the point across that you're really trying to make? Is this the best source? Is this the best resource? That's incredibly helpful. And don't underscore, potentially one of your classmates could do that for you as well. So the more eyes you get on the paper, or the work that you're going to submit, the better off you're going to be. So really focus on picking up those errors before you submit. It pains me to take those points off for stuff that could have been easily caught, especially easy stuff like easy grammar stuff and mechanics stuff where, it's on the screen with a red squiggly under it. That's kind of a dead giveaway. So always take a look at those. So with that, as you review the feedback, it is my job to help support you in the learning process. So if you have questions, if something I commented on wasn't overly clear, by all means, reach out in a professional manner, and I'm here to help answer those questions for you. So look forward to seeing your work in week 2, and let me know if you have any questions.